Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today I want to talk to you about Mythic plus roles. Not just roles, but what are their inherent responsibilities of each role. Tank, healer, DPS, and we're going to break it down a little bit. Now this stemmed from a 15 Theater of Pain, which didn't go super well. We didn't time it, but it wasn't by much. It was a couple of, I think it was like 30, 40 seconds. I ended up being the last one alive on Mordretha because people weren't moving. It's a whole big thing. We all know what can happen once people start dropping like flies on Mordretha, but I ended up soloing her down from like 5% on my Prot Warrior, and things went, we finished it and whatever. But this rogue decided to message me and blamed my weird route. So let's talk about that and what roles are and break it down, because I had started immediately making a video, but it was very angry about what DPS can do to make the key better. So let's go constructive. Let's take that route right there. Right. All right. So first, like, comment, subscribe. I cannot do this without the support of you, the people. Hit that button. Comment if you feel you can add anything positive or constructive to this conversation. I would love to hear from you guys, from everybody. Twitch link is down below if you like checking out stream. As well, my guild Bloodstorm is looking for healers and DPS. You can check the guild link down below as well. There is a guild/community Discord link there as well. Check it out. If you have any questions, come on in and join. So let's get in. First things first, the primary role of this channel, really. It's not the primary role. It takes 5 people to do a Mythic Plus run. 4 if the DPS are really good. But it takes... It's a team effort, but you're on this channel, so chances are you're a little bit more acquainted with the tank role than the others. So the tank has a lot of upfront responsibilities. You need to be able to route the dungeon, have someplace in, because you are the leader in where you are going and what you are pulling next. So you have to have some familiarity with the dungeon, know where you're going, know where the problem packs are, and not stack too many problem packs in a row. That is a problem that can happen where you just kind of do 1, 2, 3, and like no one's got cooldowns left for the third. They've burned everything, and it becomes kind of like a nightmare scenario of having to deal with stuff that you don't want to deal with, which leads into pacing. It is the tank's job to pace the dungeon. Sometimes it's go, 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 pull, 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 chain, go, go, go. Sometimes you have to stop. On Necrotic Spiteful Week was the perfect example of when to pace. If you can learn when to pace during that week, that's really good, because what happens is the Spitefuls keep you in combat, and if you're playing a tank on Necrotic Week, there is a somewhat decent chance you're playing Kyrian. I mean, if you're a tank at all, there's a somewhat decent chance you're playing Kyrian to begin with. But on Necrotic Week, you're actually a little bit more likely to play Kyrian. But the Spitefuls keep you in combat, which means if you're relying on your file to get rid of Necrotic stacks on problem packs, you need to get out of combat, which means you have to just stop. You have to just not chain pull and stop and let the Spitefuls die out, so you can reset the file, reset the cooldown on file, so that way you can have that ability in 3 minutes when you know that problem pack is coming, which means it's your job to pace that dungeon and work things out. If you have to work out a kick rotation, most people are going to lean on the tank to do so. Some tanks have more kicks than others, which is why I prefer pugging keys on my paladin, because I can kick basically everything and not have to rely on people doing it. But setting up a kick rotation of, hey, you, hey, Shaman, can you kick all of the Rebellious Fists? Everybody else take care of the rest of the stuff. Just doing little things like that is a big role for the tank, which is, again, part of that leadership role. We have all of that. And we haven't even begun on what to do as your role with the physically hitting buttons yet. Tank DPS is important, yes, but not at the expense of survivability. If you're going into pulls and your healer has to just spot heal you all of the time and not be able to do anything else, or have to let DPS die because you've just focused on, hey, I want to do as much damage as possible, and focused literally 0 on survivability, that's on you. survivability is number one as a tank. You have to be able to live through the pulls on your own as best as possible. Once you've learned how to do that, then you can be like, all right, now I'm going to start blasting because I know where my defensives are, that the healer has to just worry about me minimally. And that is very important, because you hear of a lot of people say, like, a lot of tanks be like, well, I don't know why my DPS just can't deal as much DPS or they're always dying. Well, maybe it's your fault, because if the healer is constantly having to worry about you in particular, the healer's not going to be able to spot heal the DPS anywhere near as much, which leads to more deaths because you're not using defensives properly. See, this is all one big circle of life. And so what you can do is make your healer's life easier by focusing on survivability first, then worrying about your DPS. So then that way your DPS players can do DPS. Pretty simple, right? So those are the main roles of the tank. Survive, pull, lead, and do those types of things to allow your other players to do their job. Okay? That's the big thing. You need to be able to survive these packs and to play these packs and to route the dungeon properly for everybody to flow well. Let's talk healers. Now, healers have the biggest responsibility, which is healing, but they don't have a lot of responsibilities outside of that. Like, I just named a lot of bullet points for tanks, but healers are heal. Keep people alive. That's the main job. Sometimes what they do, what I call a healer's role, is backup pacing. Sometimes the tank is just pulling too fast and others can't keep up. The healer is the first person that's going to notice that. Absolutely they are. Because their mana is going to dictate if you're pulling too much, too fast, nonstop. Even with if they're burning through it every pack, you need to give them... Sometimes the healer just has... Okay, stop for a second. I need mana, time to drink. That literally calls 10-second break. You can take a 10-second break in a dungeon. Trust me, I have seen, and still time it. It's really not a problem. But that allows people to recuperate. And going in after like that 10-second drink break or whatever it is can sometimes be more beneficial than going in half-cocked. Allowing some cooldowns to come back that needed a couple more seconds and things like that. It really can help the flow of a dungeon. So healers heal, backup pacing, and then of course, when they don't have to, if everybody's nice and topped up or no one's in danger of dying, because, you know, you can live at 80% health, mage and rogue, you're fine. Like, you know, you don't need to be topped up because you're not at 99.9%. Is to do DPS. DPS after that main role is done. Really, it's not a lot of things, but it is so many things. It is absolutely crazy. I do not envy a healer's responsibility in dungeons, because I have seen a lot of bad tanks out there who just make life miserable for healers. But then when you get a healer that has a great tank, and you can just see the DPS pop off, everyone's topped, everything's working well. It all flows in tandem with another. Now, DPS. Believe it or not, DPS, you have more than one bullet point on this. And it's not just DPS. Because the old adage, you can't DPS when you're dead. So what you can do is you can make life easier on your tank. The easier that you make life on your tank, the easier you're going to make it on yourself. Let me explain why and how. Number one, every DPS class has a kick, an interrupt. Use it. 3 total interrupts in a Mythic Plus run is not enough. Details tracks interrupts. Track your own interrupts. Track the interrupts of a party. And you will notice the better a run goes, the more interrupts are on that overall. The more people are kicking things. The more people are stunning things. You have an entire kit of slows, stuns, roots, CCs, kicks, and all sorts of stuff. Use it. Because you know what happens to a tank when the entire pull is stunned for 3 seconds? He's not taking damage. And if he's not taking damage, the healer doesn't have to heal him. And if the healer doesn't have to heal him, they can make sure you're topped off. And if you're topped off, you don't have to worry about dying, which means you can blast DPS. Wow. Who would have known that helping your tank live and using your kit and kicks and CCs could help you do more damage? It's just an absolutely wild concept. Other things that you can do. Wait for the tank to have threat and a pull set up before doing your burst rotation. I have seen so many pulls deteriorate because I, as a tank, have hit Avenger's Shield once, and suddenly there's a Wild Spirits, a Blade Storm, and an I-Beam going on, and I haven't even finished putting the mobs into place yet. Like, I've hit a global, and I have all of these things going off. And I'm not just making fun of Hunters, Warriors, and Demon Hunters here. Every class has been responsible for this in one pull or another. You need to give the tank a few globals to get set up. If you're going to do damage, make it basic abilities until the pull is ready. It doesn't take a long time. It just takes the tank a few globals to move into place and get things down. And then once it's down, that tank will have enough threat that you won't have to worry about your Wild Spirits or anything ripping off threat because you've waited just a little bit. As a Fury Warrior, when I go in as DPS there, what I do is I will go in, I'll charge if I don't have Recklessness, or, I'll kind of just whirlwind, do some stuff, just light damage. And then when the tank is kind of got everything nice in one place, I'll heroic leap away, hit Recklessness, charge back in, do my burst rotation, hit 50-60k, and life is good. And I won't pull threat. Why? Because I've waited long enough for the tank to generate that threat. But also, if you have movement of ground placement abilities, Wild Spirits, Blizzards, your Fire Patch for Fire Mages, I mean, there's a lot there. You're at a lot less risk of the tank pulling them out. Now, this is a habit of DPS, and this became a habit of mine in low keys where packs don't live long enough. Where literally you go into a 3 or a 4, and by the time your Wild Spirits is down and you maybe hit your second aim shot, like 50, 70% of the pack is dead, and it feels like you've wasted your CD, which means that you just want to do it faster so that way you can get more out of it. That's actually the wrong mentality to go into it in a 15, especially a 15 fortified, 15, 16. Once you get into these higher keys, trust me, the pack will last long enough that your abilities aren't going to go to waste. They really are. You're going to be fine. But that also lets the tank not have to move. Like, if you put down your Wild Spirits or, whatever, your Blizzard, if your tank's already set up with the pull and is keeping them there, there's a good chance he's not going to pull them out for you, which means you get to do more DPS. Because you know what does more DPS than Wild Spirits? Having mobs actually inside your Wild Spirits. Killer concept. Totally wild, I'm aware. But these things, if you do these things, use your kicks, use your CCs, and rotate them in with other DPS players and learn the mechanics of when you have to worry about what, because you are in control of your tank's life just as well. You may not kill him, sometimes you do, you may not kill him, but if you make his life that much more difficult, his or her life, sorry, if you make the tank's life that much more difficult, then the healer's life becomes more difficult. If the healer's life becomes more difficult, your life becomes more difficult. Do you see how this circle of life now kind of flows into a 5-man team where DPS players can make tank players can make healer players have a lot more difficult time? It's really kind of how it works. And by doing all of these things combined as a 5-man group, your run is going to be incredible. Coming from someone who has, who's pushed higher keys, who pugs keys all of the time, has been pugging most of his keys this tier, my best runs as a tank come down to one thing. How often do the DPS kick, stun, and use their CC, or help the tank kite? Because sometimes the tank has to kite. And I love seeing a grounding totem, a binding shot, Ursol's Vortex. There's so many things that DPS and healers have that the moment they see a kite start to tank, they use some sort of CC, help the tank live, because if the tank is living and still has threat, you still get to DPS. Wild. I know, it's such an insane concept, right? So, if you're going into a Mythic Plus run and you're like, no, my whole thing is I do damage and that's it and I don't use any CC, chances are you're the reason keys aren't getting timed. Very, very good chance. Just saying. But everybody has their role. Everybody has their responsibility. And everybody needs to put forward their best foot and help learn and communicate, which is why I wanted to do this more constructive video of these are the roles. This is not just what's... Because a lot of people put a lot on the tank. That's one thing that I've noticed. The amount of responsibility that people put on tanks is absolutely unreal in Mythic Plus. I, as a pug tank, have just get blamed for so much stuff. A mage blaming me for not timing a key when they kicked a total of 3 times in a dungeon and literally did not help me kite at all as a frost mage on a necrotic week. You can easily use Frost Nova and just keep them in place while the tank runs away. It's really not... runs right by you, nonetheless. But no, you blink on the other side of them and you don't... Like, see, it's things like that. Take this in mind the next time you go into a Mythic Plus run. Take this in mind the next time you see a bad run. Go check the interrupts. Go check the CCs. And take this in mind when you go into a run that just... you two-chest it and things go absolutely insane. Go check the CCs and the interrupts, and I'm telling you, the difference will be absolutely incredible in those overall numbers. It really, really will. So, that is this video for Mythic Plus roles. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying 9.2 as much as I am. It has been an absolute blast. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy your day.